We are at a session I personally have been looking very much forward to. As you all know, throughout the day, I've been consistently asking the question, how we help to accomplish our goals through education and training. So the last segment of this is really going to be focused on that. We have Dr. Ray Swienton, who I've worked with at least about 20, 30 years now on this area. He was a co-founder with me of our journal and members of National Disaster Life Support. Ray has been very active globally, and one of his interests is defining a universal curriculum. I think the curriculum he's working on is directed to health professionals as a whole. And it's something, we want to hear about and look forward to being able to agree on this kind of a curriculum going forward. So with that, Ray, I am going to turn the microphone over to you.
Well, Dr. James, you are very kind. Can you see my slide okay? And can you hear my voice okay?
I'd like to hear it a little louder, but I can hear it fine. I mean, no big problem. I'm half deaf.
All right, well, I'll proceed. If there's any issue, please let me know. Truly, distinguished colleagues, it is so kind to be with you today and such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you and to share for a few moments. Taking a little bit different direction, the concept here that we're looking at is how do we prepare experts? How do we build consensus among those who are learning to become experts in the future? In some ways, fellowships and many other disciplines. We've heard the words integration. The whole theme of this concept, as I look at that title of intersection, is an interesting one unto itself. I come to you from the University of Texas. I'm wearing a casual shirt today with my Cowboy star on. We have a winning season on our football team, which is rare this year, and we have a sunny 70-degree day here in Dallas in December. I know it's rare, but we're going to take advantage of it. But seriously, it's a pleasure to be here. My job daytime is I'm a professor of emergency medicine. I work in a large public health setting at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas, and I run the division as well as the program director for the fellowship in our disaster medicine related elements that I'll share about in just a minute. As we look at these things, and first of all, I don't have anything to disclose. I have no financial obligation. As we look at these things, I look at the intersection. Jim, I think that title is really a fortuitous and a little bit prophetic. What does an intersection mean? It requires crossing of our paths. And I think that's exactly where we are. When we look at climate and the excellent presentations that have been shared here and the others that we know, there is no question nor doubt of what needs to be done. But how are we preparing experts for that? How are we prepared ourselves for some of that? As a very personal level, what we've seen through the pandemic in terms of personal preparedness, what are we doing in the long term as we look at some of these other issues that have been presented today? I want to share a little bit about that. I got 4 discussion points I will rapidly move through just to set a concept here. Be glad to take questions now or in the future. As we talk about preparing experts, we talk about looking at training those who are going to be training others for a career. And we say, well, what's a concept? Well, I want to talk a bit about what we started several years ago. We reported at this annual meeting 2 years ago about some progress. I'll give an update. I want to share with you a model of an educational program we've been conducting. And I want to talk about the experience of that model with our colleagues in Malaysia and India and other places who came together to say, how can we do this collaboratively? At the end, I've got a charge for the society. And I know Dr. James shares this with me, but I think the society is the perfect venue, a place to call a home, if you will, for fellows, fellowships, and faculty. Let me give you a little bit of background, set the stage here just for a little bit. Remember the times long ago, BC, not that BC, but before COVID, when dinosaurs roamed and humans didn't all wear masks all the time. Well, back in 2019, I had the pleasure of presenting information that a large group of experts had worked on, looking at the advancements of disciplines in the field of disaster medicine, public health preparedness, and looking as we transitioned, as we look at postgraduate training into milestones and what skill levels and how do we demonstrate these things and what did it mean? We looked at the foundational work of the society and the efforts and of course the amazing advancement of science that Jim's journal has done now over these long periods of time. We then began to say, well, how do we train at the top if we're going to expect the levels in between to achieve preparedness, to achieve the integration and collaboration we want? We have to also make sure that we're addressing those at the top in these fellowship or expert level training courses. And indeed, we took aim, if we will, and looked to see how well we were hitting the targets. We looked then specifically to say, what is the role of fellows in the society? What does that mean? You know, the often quoted but seldom cited Wikipedia is where I found, you know, what is a fellow? Well, in a society, it's recognition, right? It's recognition for work and achievement. It is a privileged membership in ways. But what does that mean in terms of fellowship or getting to be that person? You know, fellowship has a lot of different meanings. When we talk about it in an educational sense, it's a scholarship, an opportunity. U.S. News and World Report had a nice summary, not of just medical, but of many different types of fellowship opportunities in the recent couple of years. What they really come down to is the line that's highlighted, and that is the goal of a fellowship is really to become a master practitioner of your art or trade within a smaller area in medicine, perhaps, or in other things as well. Why the society is a home for this? Well, because it's right stated in the mission of this fine program, right? This mission of the society is to advance and promote excellence in education, training, and research, simply quoted from the documents that have been established as roots to this program. The challenge when we talk about fellowships, and we mentioned the word disaster medicine, it's a challenging niche. Why? Well, many reasons. One, multidisciplinary. We're just hearing today, you can't talk about expertise in disaster medicine without collaborative understanding, knowledge base, and in some degree skill sets from everything from environmental health services, climatology, all the aspects of clinical service delivery, public health preparedness, emergency management. I could go on and on. So how do you begin to do the integration or fostering of such a diverse group, such a keen interested, compatible group, yet very disciplinary in terms of maybe we don't necessarily share across lines the way we'd like to? If we look at USA Disaster Medicine Fellowship, I know some of my colleagues on this call are part of fellowships or run some of them, and one of our speakers coming up has as well for a great number of years. You know, the phrase, if you've seen one disaster medicine fellowship, well, in the US, you've seen one fellowship, meaning there's a lot of different ways to get to a goal. We use different vehicles, but like the silly pictures here on this diagram, you know, they don't always get to the same place the same way or at the same time. So how do you begin to put this together? I'll have to pick on myself for a moment first because I'm as guilty as anyone else. In my program, we're the Emergency and Disaster Global Health Division. What is that? Well, if I look across my faculty and areas of involvement in our training programs, it's a compilation of these niche areas that you see listed here. Some things that are rather obvious that you would expect to be involved in there. How does that come together? Well, it came together because we have a longstanding background of operational service. Being from Texas, we have a large number of natural disasters that we have historically responded to in many places. We also go outside of our borders to assist others when necessary. And in doing so, we realized that, you know, if we're going to train fellows, and we were riding that proverbial elevator up a few floors, you said, hey, quickly, what is your program about? What I would say is it's meeting the unscheduled and health and medical needs of people locally and globally. Quite simply, that sounds like it makes sense. But yet, if I were to ask other fellowship directors what's theirs, maybe it'd be similar, maybe it'd be different. Maybe others have a very significant niche interest otherwise. How do we bring this together? What this led to following our 2019 meeting was sitting down with a cohort of people that wanted to listen and said, what can we make of this? What we came together with was a hypothesis, if you will. What's a hypothesis? I love the simple definition I inserted here. It's simply a starting point. It's always based on limited evidence. You know, facts are few, stories grow, but yet there's something there we have to achieve. So one of the things we want to achieve is an integrated, collaboratively designed educational program built on a common core curriculum. We can all talk about funds of knowledge and consensus built in evidence-based importance. We can talk about wanting milestones, achievements, and other things, etc. But the reality is, how do we do this in a way that we agree to it, in a way that we can work from somewhere and go somewhere together? Hence the pilot group that I'm going to talk to you about for just a moment. This disaster medicine fellowship project we took on is a multinational pilot project. Principal collaborators listed here. There's many, many others. But I have to give thanks to Dr. Muhammad Alwi from the Ministry of Health in Malaysia. He's also the chair of emergency medicine and leads programs in multiple of the institutions and medical universities there. George Abraham is familiar to many people. He is an expert in EMS and has been in the field of emergency medicine for many decades. His work for over 20 years in Southern India and the Kerala area is outstanding and known to many. Dr. Harris runs the Institute for Disaster Management at the University of Georgia, does an outstanding job, even training through the PhD level emergency management. Dr. Flax, a newcomer to the Expert League, is one of my former fellows, really took an interest in this and saying, how do we make this work well? You know, what's our concept? This reads nicely, but this is a concept that's a work in progress. We said we can hope to achieve providing expert level education with a common curriculum, but one that embraces our differences, embraces our multidisciplinary approaches, builds on our links, builds on the pillars that make us unique, but gives us a place to work from. This began back in 2019. We presented sort of, once you say it, you've got to do it. So that's what we did back in 2019 at a large international conference that's now gone on for several years in Malaysia, in KL, including virtually during the COVID years. If you don't know much about the Malaysian disaster system, I would encourage you to look at that and their associated partnerships with their neighboring countries. It is an outstanding progressive program that looks well at integrating multinational, multicultural, and every other aspect that we talk a lot about. They live on a very regular basis. This program, and I'm not going to bore you with showing you details, but I'll be glad to share anything anyone wants, but leave it to say that we're comfortable putting educational programs together. This was a mountain of work, took a very large team of people, putting together what are the objectives, what are the units, what are the modules, evidence-based where possible, consensus-based readings where necessary. What about training faculty? How about putting programs together so fellows could learn from this and putting it in a material that is accessible, useful, and as we found out, having to be multi-modalities, such as totally virtual, that we had to adapt to during COVID. Adaptability was much more than just COVID, though. From the beginning, adaptability was a key part. You see, the intersections of where we meet in education also have to understand where we come from and where we're going. The idea of a multinational program is not a one-size-fits-all by any means. It may be a nice place to begin a base from, but then we have to understand and grow from that and adapt and allow programs to have their input and make the things unique and relevant to their local environment. At the same time, I had to do this at the USA. Be careful what you say, you might get it. When I said we're going to do this multinationally, that required me to look at my own program, to take my existing state-approved program and to begin looking at how to transition it to the same program that would be compatible in other countries. And indeed, that's what we took on and did, keeping our ACGME guideline core competency compliance intact, keeping our Texas Medical Board approval intact, and probably the hardest thing is keeping this through the GME process at UT Southwestern, convincing and understanding how a unique approach, utilizing international as well as regional and local speakers, faculty, experts, and fellows collaboratively could make a meaningful experience even better. This experience was really outstanding for us. I've learned so much and had such a great opportunity meeting us. We had a team of about 14 fellows that completed this program in the very recent past. Dr. Alwi, you see there sitting in front of his small laptop there, is the leader of this program and is outstanding in his directions for health and disaster preparedness in Southeast Asia. The faculty was a combined effort from the US, from of course Malaysia, and our colleagues from India, who IIEMS provided a number of faculty, and that's no little undertaking. They spent the better part of a year preparing, getting together, working on things, even during the midst of the COVID years, putting this program together in a way that was successful. What did we learn from this brief project? Well, several things in my opinion. One, we have a collaborative integration. We understand that it takes a faculty from multidisciplinary, multinational if you want to learn well and truly have a perspective. We understand that there's a well-received effort to look at core competencies that are common. What skills, what should all of us feel is an accomplishment for all experts in training? What about region and country specific content? It has to be present. Although we have many areas where we relate well, we have others where we need to have differences appropriately and appropriately manage things, perhaps not in the same way, but in a consistent mindset. This provided new learning opportunities for all. I'd love to say we taught a lot. To be candid with you, we learned a lot. The opportunity to share information and to listen is something that is endured in our hearts and will be with us throughout. We have made new friends. We have made new colleagues. The next time we are able to respond together will be an outstanding opportunity because we've had this year to share together. One of the things that benefited from this program to my colleagues that run programs in the US is it really reduced our faculty burden time. Not during the developmental phase, of course, there's a lot of effort to put in, But now that there's a program up and running, we can share faculty. We can have our fellows participate and listen to others who are speaking on a regular basis, participate in other programs from other countries. We've generated several other countries of interest, but most importantly, we've just graduated 14 fellows from this inaugural program. We've had opportunities to share about this through Dr. James's relationships with UNESCO. We've had opportunities to share about this now post-fact in TopCom and their more recent conferences in Malaysia. One of the things we're often asked as I begin to wrap this up is, well, how were you impacted by the obvious, the COVID-19 pandemic? And I use this simple diagram to convey what our fellows and our faculty have said to us. You know, we came to this with various pieces in the diagram on the left. We all brought something to the table. It all fit together rather nicely, some smooth edges, kind of a frame picture. But when we got together, what we realized is it actually created openings. What fit together allowed us to then think through and begin to look at other things differently. We talked about each of our own survivals, if you will, through the COVID times, the healing that's going on, the learning, what do we need to remember, and true, some of what we want to forget. What is the science? Where is it? Where are we going to go with it? And how do we teach this to one another? So when we look at COVID anymore, we see countries victorious over disease. That's what this fellowship sort of coined as its phrase for looking at that. As I said before, this is a work in progress. Please, this is just the beginning. We have put a great deal of effort to get started, but it will go nowhere without a lot of programs looking at this, tearing this curriculum apart, deciding what's good or bad, what works and what doesn't. If there's something in there that looks great, use it. If there's not, please fix it so everybody else can use it too and have a better opportunity. I think the society is a good place to house this. I think as next steps, we do what we just talked about. We foster the society and the fellows in recognition for those who have expert achievement in multidisciplinary areas. We look at fellowships and faculty as an opportunity to say, we can integrate, we can use core curriculum, and we can build a network of fellowships that's setting the foundation for future experts. I can't thank you all enough for the opportunity to share these moments with you. I hope I've been on time for you. Dr. James here. Looks like I'm about a minute over, so I'll be quiet. Thank you all very much.